This is the story of my father, my hero, who will live in my memory forever. I'm 74 years old now, the same age that my father was when he passed away. And I think that it's time now to let the story out so it will live in the archives of the internet. I have lived in the United States for almost 50 years. I came to this country from the Soviet Union with my mother as a young man in my early 20s. But this story is not about me and my life in America. Everything you are about to hear is 100% true, exactly as my father told me many years ago, and as my mother later confirmed after his death in 1976. This is the story of a man who lived through almost everything the 20th century could throw at a person and who remained a hero to the very end. He was born in 1902 in a small village near Kamenets-Podolsky in what is now western Ukraine. He was the eldest son in a family of 12 children, 7 girls and 5 boys. As the oldest, he was expected to work from a very young age, helping his father in the field, tending cattle, doing whatever was needed to keep the family alive. After his father died in an unfortunate accident, he took the responsibility to a higher level. Now he was a provider, and he was only 15. My grandmother had never remarried till she passed away in a very old age of 102. In 1918, when he was only 16 years old, bedlam swept through the region during the Russian Civil War. A gang of anarchists burst into the village. One of them attacked his sister. My father was in the barn. He heard the scream, ran into the house, and fought the man. The attacker did not survive. Terrified of revenge, my father fled into the forest, where he spent several days without food or water. A few days later, he encountered a detachment of Red Army cavalry passing through the woods. They asked him why he was hiding. He told them everything. They put him on a horse and rode back with him to the village to drive the bandits away. When his mother saw him riding with the soldiers, she shouted for him to get down. But the Red Army officer said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. From this day on, your son is enlisted. We need men like him." And that is how, at 16 years old, strong and fearless, my father became a Red Army soldier. He fought until 1920. He almost never spoke about those years. But I learned the story from my grandmother. She described it in a very funny way. She was able to turn any story into a nice laugher. Returning back home, he married and had 6 children on his own. In 1939, he fought in the Soviet-Finnish War. After returning home, he worked as a boiler operator in a factory. These were the terrible years of Stalin repression. One winter, desperate to keep his family warm, he took a few handful coal from the factory, just enough to heat his home. For that, he was arrested. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison. It was a cruel and unjust time. They worked brutally hard during the day. At night, some prisoners relaxed by playing cards, simple games like a blackjack. My father was lucky. He won a large amount of money. At the time, he had no idea that this money would later save his life. When the Great Patriotic War began in 1941, he was released early and sent directly to the front. In December 1941, he defended Moscow as the German army stood only a few dozen miles from the capital. He was assigned to a special penal battalion made up of prisoners and criminals. Some were very truly dangerous men. They were sent into the battle without weapons. Their orders were simple: attack, take weapons from the enemy. If your comrade falls, take his weapon, and keep on going. Most of them did not survive the first attack. After the battle, my father approached the commanding officer. He told him that he had a large amount of money sewing around his legs, and that it could be his if he removed him from the suicide unit. The officer agreed, but he said that in order to do that, he needs to make an official report that the soldier named Rovner would be listed as killed in action. He issued my father a new document under a slightly different name, and the name was Krovlev. That clerical change saved his life, and that is how our family name was changed forever. Within a year, my father earned the rank of Starshina, senior sergeant. In the autumn of 1942, his brigade was sent to Stalingrad. On October 14 of 1942, the Soviet military newspaper Krasnaya Zvezda reported, during yesterday's battle, German infantry attacked our position under the cover of tanks and aviation. Soviet soldiers replied the assault, destroying 200 enemy soldiers and knocking out 5 tanks. 2 tanks were destroyed by Lieutenant Shonin, and 2 more were disabled by grenade thrown by the Starshina Krovlev. My father later told me that surviving Stalingrad as an ordinary infantryman was almost impossible. What saved his life was becoming a scout. Scouts operated mostly at night and deep behind the enemy lines. They hunted for the tanks German officers captured for integration. It was extremely dangerous work, but it gave him a chance to live. He fought until October 1944. Near Riga, during the liberation of the Baltic states, he was severely wounded in the stomach. It was his third wound. The others were to his shoulder and leg. While recovering in the hospital, he was awarded the Order of the Glory, the third class, the highest Soviet award given to enlisted men for personal bravery. He received it for leading a reconnaissance group that captured a high-ranking German officer. He was wounded again during that mission, but completed it. He also received a medal for the victory over Germany, along with several anniversary medals. When the war ended and he finally returned home, he learned the most terrible truth of his life. In the first month of German occupation, Ukrainian nationalists had executed his first wife, who was Jewish, and their 6 small children, all 6 of them. The brothers and sisters I have never met. I often wondered what they looked like, what their names were. A neighbor told him that his mother might still be alive. Before the occupation, she had gone to Kharkov to visit her sister and never returned. My father went to Kharkov to find her. Years of prison, war had changed him so much that she did not recognize him at first. On the wall hung photographs of his 2 younger brothers. Both were killed in the war. Quietly, my father said, I fought with them. And she replied, Oh God, they were killed. Only when he began to cry, finding that terrible news about his brothers, she realized it was his son. In 1945, he met my mother. Her husband had been killed at the front, and her 2 young daughters had died of typhus during the evacuation. 2 people who had lost everything found each other. In 1946, my sister was born, and I was born in 1951. After the war, my father found the commanding officer who had changed his name and saved his life. They became friends. They met often, talked for hours, and remembered the war, moments of fear, moments of luck, moments that only those who survived could truly understand. As a little boy, I sometimes sat nearby and listened to their conversations. I remembered feeling a strange kind of envy. I thought how terrible it was that I had been born after the war, that I would never have a chance to become a hero like them. Those were childish thoughts. But today, when I remember those moments, they bring a smile to my face. My father died there in Kharkov in 1976. In 1978, my mother and I immigrated to the United States, and my sister joined us 9 years later. I have always been proud of my father. I carry his memory with me as long as I live. I tell my children and grandchildren who do not speak Russian what their surname means. They know that their great grandfather was a true hero. The eldest of 12 children, illiterate yet fearless, a boy who defended his sister at 16, a prisoner for a handful of coal, a scout who survived Stalingrad, a man who lost one family and built another. And this is the story that I wanted to share with you about my father, my hero, the man that I always remember and cherish for the rest of my life.